alhamdulillah, I'm from a big family that I love quite dearly, and I'm very lucky to have, and is the single-handed biggest inspiration and motivation in my life personally. And I think in medicine, everyone's family situation is different.
Yeah.
Some people find their friends closer than family, some people quite distant from their family. There's a lot of situations where you can empathise with people, and other situations, their situations are so different that it's quite hard to understand from your perspective. And I think that whether it's family or it's friends, or whatever title that you want to give the people that are special to and important in your life, I think they're a valuable thing in life to have in your life. And when you do something as rigorous and intensive and as vocational as medicine, having them often just to be around, to be listened to, and for them to see your journey in a sort of from an objective point. Well, I mean, it's not objective because they love you to bits usually, but it's just a really important support network. It keeps you grounded.
I think family has a massive impact on your life in medical school. Like, I think you all get like the proud families, this, that and the other. Like, I remember taking my scrubs home for the first time and Mum was ironing them and took a photo of my iron scrubs on the ironing board and was like, oh, it's so nice, look at this, I'm a student doctor. And I was like, I think like it's such like a mum thing to do. I think like my nan was so proud when I got into medical school. Like, I'd go around to her house and like every Tom, Dick and Harry knew that I was a medical student. Like, she would just shout it like to everyone. I was like, okay, no. Like, but I think it's kind of cute, isn't it, when they're that proud and stuff. Like, it's nice to go home and just have that like blank from medical school. And like, obviously I'm really close to my mum, so it's nice just to go home and just have a chill with Donna. But no, I think they do have a massive impact. Like, even just on like your well-being and stuff, just like to be able to ring your mum and be like, oh yeah.
I don't know. My family doesn't really play that much of a role because none of them have done medicine. Very few of them have actually gone to uni. They don't really play much of a part, but they're always very supportive in everything I do, and they're always like excited if something nice happens, or you know, they're always interested in things. Because they're not medical, like sometimes you try and say things to them but it all goes very over the head, and then I'm like, okay, I need to explain this better for them to understand and things. Like, and what you can play tricks on them and jokes on them and stuff. Like, once I was on orthopaedics and my mum should have known that I was on orthopaedics, but because like they're not that involved, I don't think she's really paying attention, and then we had to like do the thing where you practice putting a cast on yourself. So I did it, and then I sent a photo to her being like, broke my arm, lol, and then she was like, oh my god, like ringing me and stuff, and I was like, I've been on orthopaedics for like 3 weeks now. She was like, I don't know what orthopaedics is, Alice, you need to use English words. And I was like, oh yeah, like that does, like, that's fair enough. Yeah, she's just a bit out of the loop.
Both my parents are doctors. My mum is an ophthalmologist and my dad is an ophthalmologist as well. A lot of people think that, you know, if your parents are doctors, they're going to force you to be a doctor as well, and that's how it works, or you know, you're only doing it because your parents are doctors or things like that. And that really frustrates me because, funnily enough, my parents kind of tried to convince me not to do it because they've gone through it and they know sort of how challenging it can be. I don't think they wanted that for me, and they just sort of were trying to sort of push me away from it and things like that, and I was very persistent. I have 3 older sisters and none of them did it, so I was sort of like the first one to do it, and I am glad with, like, I am happy with my decision and definitely glad I did it.
I don't have any doctors in the family.
Neither do I.
I think I had an auntie who was a nurse, but there's not really much. I mean, there probably is some distant relative who's a doctor, but it wasn't like I was strong-armed into doing medicine. It wasn't some sort of family sort of thing. But my parents are both university educated, so like it was probably assumed that we would all go to university. Like, my brother does physics, my sister does languages. Neither of them would ever want to be a doctor. But yeah, my parents definitely encouraged me to do it, but only because I wanted to.
I think mine's quite similar. Like, they wouldn't really get that involved in medicine. Like, they don't really help me with like my revision or like getting electives or anything like that, because none of them are really that medical. But they definitely helped out a lot during the LLM. My stepdad literally was like taking days off work to help me like write my essays. And I'd be like, so I've got to say, like, reword this, like, what do you think? And then he'd say something, I'd be like, slow down. Like, literally couldn't type it fast enough.
Like think about all the highs and lows of medicine. Like, at the end of the day, your family's always been there. Like, and your lowest lows, like, your family's been there to talk to your mum and dad.
Or whoever, whichever people
whichever
that
people
have been there for you.
At the end of the day, no matter where you go or what you do, you'll always have family there to support you and help you. And I feel like they've influenced me a lot. in my decision of studying medicine. I've got a younger brother who studies medicine in Birmingham. I've got an older sister who's doing nursing in Manchester. My parents don't do medicine, so my mum's like really pushed us into it.
But they are very supportive. And it sounds a bit cringe, but I don't think I could have like done uni without them, obviously. Like,
Oh, yeah, same.
yeah.
I need to give my granny a shout out actually because she proofread 60,000 words of my MPhil twice as well, 2 versions. So shout out to her. Absolutely, just brilliant. Yeah, that was great.
I think like maybe their perception of med school is still a bit different. Like even though I tell them certain things, like they still have that, like you said, like, they hold that like nice like med student like picture and like things like that, and like what like they're glad that you're there and things. So like I want to keep them thinking that rather than thinking like what is it actually like, is the bits that I don't like and things.
Yeah.
They understand what you're going through, and although sort of they've done it 20-30 years ago, so they're sort of past the stage that I'm at now, but there's still that sort of understanding, and when you need that support from them, they're there to support you and they can actually empathize with you because they've been through it. So I think that's definitely one of the biggest pluses for me. Going back 20-30 years ago when they qualified, a lot's changed since then, so they don't really know much about how things are what things are going on now. And then also they're quite they're at the point where they're past their training, they've done everything, so they're at the end now, and they've been that way for quite a while. So when I ask them about a silly sort of medical question about an exam, a third year exam or something like that, they're just kind of like, they get it, but they don't know how to help me because it's been so long since they've done that. So you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like, and there are advantages, but then there are also things that people think are advantages, but they're not really. Especially with something like ophthalmology, they're so specialist. So it's like they've forgotten everything. They're not going to help me with my finals or anything like that. But it definitely is a plus in terms of the support that you get, they feel for you because they've gone through it at one point.
I mean, I tell my mum, but she's not always the most helpful. She's like, suck it up, get on with it. I'm like, sometimes tough love works though. Yeah. Tough love does work. I think, because I don't have any doctors in the family or anyone medical like in the family, so I never had an influence like that. But my dad, when I was like applying, I feel like I was kind of ready to give up. Like at A-levels, like UK CAT, you get to that point, you're thinking, I'm not going to get in, the interviews are too hard. My mum and dad were like just do what you want. Like my dad doesn't necessarily like his job that he picked when he was younger, and he's like, I just want you to do something that you enjoy. Like, and they probably made me persevere more to do medicine, because I probably, if they hadn't have been like that, I probably would have easily given up.
Yeah. But none of my family were in medicine, don't understand it. Even now they don't understand it when I try and tell them about it. But they're so supportive and they're so proud. And I'm like the opposite, neither of my parents went to university. But I think they did want that for me. That was like the path that they thought would be best, and they've been really supportive. And even now, when I go home and come back, I always come back with loads of food, and they try and support me in that way, keep me sane, and like sending me little bits in the post, which is always nice. And I just talk to my mum like all the time, like every day probably. So even though they don't fully know what I'm doing with my studies, they try and remember dates of when I'm going to get results, and ask me about things and just chat generally.
You have to explain, like I'll be on the phone to my grandma, like she'll be like, so where are you working? And I'm like, well, first of all I find out where in the country, then I find out which hospital, and they don't really know what's going on, but they're all really supportive.
Would you recommend medicine to Hayden? Because I would recommend it to Laura. I mean, me and my brother are chalk and cheese. He's not educationally driven. No, Laura is in a different way. Yeah, I think it's different, isn't it? Yeah. If my sibling was into medicine, I'd like, maybe not like recommend it, but I'd like give them the hard truths, but also tell them why I like it. Yeah. And I would want to like help them through it, but I wouldn't recommend it to Laura personally. It's not her thing. It's definitely not her thing.
Yeah, I don't have any younger siblings. They're still applying to things, but if I did hypothetically, then I would recommend it. Yeah, I would if you were interested in it. Like if that's what you want to do. You have to be the right sort of person. You have to go into it because you actually want to. You like science and you like people essentially, and you want to do something where you have to accept that you're going to be working hard and that there were easier ways to make equal amounts of money, and so if that's what you're interested in, go into something else. But yeah, if you're the right person, then yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Study medicine, as long as you're going to pass every year, you kind of have really good job security.
Yeah, as long as you don't do anything unsafe.
Yeah.
And even if you do, if there was a reason for that, you know, then it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, job security, you're pretty much guaranteed a job. I mean, the pandemic is a good example of that.
I know, we're really lucky to be able to have that, and if you enjoy it, that's even better.
Yeah.
And so that's probably a reason why people's parents might push them into it.
It's generally a respected career.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyway, I think
says.
if I hadn't have done medicine as well, like I said, I wanted to maybe do midwifery, but again, it was one of those like vocational courses.
Yeah.
You knew what you were going to end up. For me, going to university was really scary, thinking I'll do a subject where I don't know what I'm going to
like
do.
just do English or physics. But
Maybe
then
that's
it's like,
because I like to plan my whole life, so I knew
your whole life is pretty much planned out for you when you do medicine. You have to choose a few things along the way, but ultimately you'll be in a job. You'll be paid well enough to live a fairly decent life.
Yeah.
A better life if you live up north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.